Hey folks, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be recommending you 5 short sci-fi books that I think you should read. So without further ado, let's jump in. The first book that I'm going to recommend is The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. This is a book centering around essentially aliens, I guess you could call them, coming onto planet Earth and chaos ensues. And if you haven't watched the film, what have you been doing? Where have you been? Go and watch it because the film is amazing. But the book is set at a very different time. The film is set in modern times, 21st century, but the book is set in the Victorian era. And the thing I really loved about it is the contrast between technology versus kind of like Victorian era England. It's really fast paced. Like there's quite a lot of happening, but there's a lot of like quiet moments too, of like these moments where like the machines are just quiet and you're like, oh no, there's this sense of dread. H.G. Wells creates this really wonderful tension throughout the story. And I think if you're looking for like quite a fast-paced read, this will hit the note because it's like 240 pages long. It's really fast-paced, a lot happening, and I think you'll enjoy it, especially if you like the film. Like it's a slightly different take on the film, but it's done very well. The next book on my list is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. Now, this is obviously a part of a trilogy and part of a broader world, but I genuinely think you can read the first book as a standalone. It's very fast-paced. It ends on a little bit of a cliffhanger, but it's not like a burning cliffhanger where you really need to know what happens next. I think that comes more in the second book. But the first book is very contained story-wise. It's a kind of finished, complete plot. We are essentially in a Hunger Games-esque type situation where our main character, Darrow, is essentially fighting for his life, for essentially a position in high society so that he can infiltrate it. Now, it is very intense. There is a lot happening. The first book isn't that big though, and I read it in like one sitting because I was hooked. But it's one of those books where like if you're looking for something that's going to keep you literally on the edge of your seat, you will love this book. It's paced so well. It's paced insanely well to the point where my heart was racing at certain parts in that book. I don't know if that's a good thing, but regardless, I read it and consumed it very quickly. And I think if you're looking for like a quick, very intense sci-fi read, you're going to really enjoy it. It's very basic writing wise, which I know a lot of people use as a criticism, but I don't think that's a bad thing. I think just get on with reading it. The next suggestion I have is Rendezvous of Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. Now, this is a book made for film. I'm so happy that Denis Villeneuve is directing it because I think he would be perfect for directing it after what I saw with what he did with Dune. It's essentially about a bunch of people. They find this planet and they go onto said planet. There's no one there and they're exploring the planet. It is got one of the best scenes that I have read in sci-fi ever, where the people land on this planet and they go into one of the kind of like main areas, but it's completely pitch black. So you can't actually see anything. But when they figure out like how to basically like turn the lights on, and the reveal is just phenomenal. It is one of the most like cinematic things I've ever read. And for that alone, it's worth it. And it's super short. It's like 200 pages long, but it's like one of the most underrated sci-fi books in my opinion. A lot of people should be reading it more because it's just that good. And there's like this weird like ending as well. This one is definitely a bit more slower paced, but the tension that Clarke creates is super impressive, like super impressive. And I was hooked through every page. All right, the next book I'm going to recommend is Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. Now, this is kind of a very kind of classic sci-fi book. I read this last year, I think it was, and I liked it. I don't think it's the best sci-fi book I've ever read, but I think it's the sort of book that you will enjoy if you really like the kind of question around like sentience and what it means to be like a sentient being, what it means to be human. And if you're into artificial intelligence like I am, then this is the sort of book that I think you'd really enjoy. This is my first time reading Philip K. Dick, and I'm not a massive fan of his writing style, and I think that's why maybe I didn't give it a higher rating than I did. But I think it's the sort of book that you can get through fairly quickly, And I think the philosophical questions it brings up are really fascinating. And I think that alone, you should read it. It is a classic sci-fi book. And I feel like everybody should read some Philip K. Dick at some point in their life. Just like they should read some Arthur C. Clarke in their life. And this is the one that I would recommend, given that it's the only one that I've read so far. And then last on my list is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This is a story about what happens when we censor words and books and literature. It is a really, really thought-provoking book to read, especially in the context of today's society, where we have states in America banning books now, which to me is just absolutely insane that happens in the land of the free and home of the brave. It's just madness. I honestly cannot compute how that makes sense. But anyway, we're not going to get into that right now. But it is a really wonderful story about living in a world where the ability to think freely is massively curtailed. And it's about living in a police state, essentially, in a state that might not obviously be a police state, but it is because they're policing the way that you think and your ability to think independently. And I just think everybody should read it. I think everybody should read Fahrenheit 451 because it shows a world, a very scary world that we are in already, but it's an extreme, and it's not too far to get to that extreme, to be completely honest. And I think we're well on our way there, which is slightly terrifying. So definitely pick up Fahrenheit 451. That's horrible. All right, well, I'm potentially going to do a second part of this one because I've got a few more recommendations. I'm also going to be reading some more sci-fi in the coming months, so I'll probably have some more recommendations based off of that. But let me know if there's any other short kind of sci-fi stories that you think others, and myself included, would enjoy, and drop it down in the comments below because I'm always keen to read more. But I hope you like these suggestions. Let me know if you've read any of them, and I'll see you in the next video, folks. Stay safe, take care, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.